Hi everyone, thank you for joining me for today's masterclass. Today's Monday, which means that we're going deep into a concept, a musical concept. These are longer lessons, so make sure you have your guitar, a place with no distractions, maybe something to write down some of the ideas that you might have as we go through this. We're going to look at figuring out scales for different chord progressions on the spot. This is kind of a follow-up lesson to last week's masterclass. If you haven't seen that, make sure you check it out before you look at this one. And let's just get started. Before we get started, I want you to be aware that I'm going to make some generalizations. I'm going to say this is the way it is, when really it's not always true. In music, there's always exceptions. There are always some things you're going to encounter where this rule does not work. I'm aware of it. You don't have to post a comment below saying, what about in this case? You're probably right. It might not work in this case. But if you understand this particular lesson here, whenever you encounter an exception, it's going to make much more sense and you'll be able to approach that exception with some of the tools that you will learn in this lesson. And it's going to be much easier if we generalize things instead of saying all the time, there are always exceptions. In this particular case, it works. But no, we're just going to consider that that's the way it is, even though it's not always that way. In order to really make sense of this lesson, we need to take a look at modes. Modes are scales, and I like to think of modes as musical alphabets. I think some of the frustrations that some players have with music theory and modes is really based on the vocabulary that is used. A lot of complicated Greek words, and that tends to make that particular subject harder than it is. But it's really not a difficult subject if you replace some of the hard words with some other words. So a mode, I'm going to refer to that as an alphabet, a musical alphabet, from which you can extract words, licks. One lick after the other, one word after the other creates a musical phrase. And just like when I'm talking to you, one word after the other creates a sentence, that creates a story. So it's all about storytelling. And modes, scales, same thing, are used to tell musical stories and to be understood by people who are in the same musical country. In other words, if you're jamming with some friends and the band is playing something in Dorian, you are jamming in the Dorian country. Therefore, you need to use the Dorian alphabet to be understood by the rest of the band. So that's what we're going to talk about today a little bit briefly before getting into which scale should you use. But before, we need to look at these modes. And we're not going to look at all the modes because, in essence, you can create your own mode or your own key. A key is just a series of notes organized into a way that you can reuse that formula in any other keys. It's just a musical alphabet. But we're going to look at 6 ones, 3 major alphabets, 3 minor alphabets. Again, I'm making a generalization here. There's more than that. There's exceptions. But we're going to look at these 6 different musical alphabets. So again, 3 go in the minor box, 3 in the major box. What does that mean? That means that 3 of them are going to work on a minor scale, 3 on a minor chord, and the other 3 on a major chord. So you match elements in music. Always match elements. So a minor chord needs a minor scale. A major chord needs a major scale. And you're going to look at these 3 different ones, minor and major, and we're going to see some similarities between them, and hopefully that'll start clicking in your mind. Let's consider that A is the root, and from A we're going to build these 6 musical alphabets. We'll start with the minor ones. One of them is called the Dorian alphabet or the Dorian mode. So if you visit the Dorian country, you're going to speak the Dorian language, and you're going to use the Dorian alphabet. Here's that scale. I'm going to play it for you in the first position, the first slice of the fretboard. That's the first slice of the fretboard. There's 7 notes in there that are repeated over and over. If I just play the first 7 notes, that I will repeat over and over. But in essence, the formula is just 7 different notes. That's for the Dorian mode. Another minor mode is the Aeolian mode. And the third one is the Phrygian mode. So bear with me here. I'm going to play all 3 one after the other. Dorian, Aeolian, Phrygian. Did you hear the difference? Probably not, or maybe, but it was kind of hard to hear. Why is that? Because these three different musical alphabets have 5 notes in common. So there's 7 letters in that alphabet, and these 7 letters have 5 letters in common. Only 2 letters or notes differentiate these modes. So if I play them one after the other, especially in the same key, it's hard to differentiate them. But the cool thing is that instead of, let's say that you're visiting the Dorian country, and you don't know the Dorian mode, your passport for that country is just to know the 5 common letters that you have between Dorian, Aeolian, and Phrygian. And those 5 letters, you probably know them already, these 5 notes. If I extract from these 3 modes the 5 common notes I have, does that look familiar? Minor pentatonic. So you have a minor pentatonic, which you should know by now, most likely, within the Dorian, Phrygian, and Aeolian mode. Okay, let's just keep that piece of information in your mind. If you're taking notes as you go through this class, write that down. Dorian, Phrygian, Aeolian, they all lead to the minor pentatonic scale. Let's now look at the other box. This box has 3 major scales, major modes, major musical alphabets. Same thing. I'm going to play them one after the other. Same thing here in the key of A. So I have A Ionian, A Lydian, A Mixolydian. All 3 one after the other. They sound very close, right? You guessed it. 5 notes in common. If I look at these 5 notes, I'll have, hey, that sounds familiar. The major pentatonic scale. Awesome. So same thing. Underneath what you just wrote down, same concepts we find within the Ionian, Lydian, and Mixolydian modes. 5 notes in common that lead to the major pentatonic scale. So that means that you can visit 6 musical countries with 2 scales, with 2 pentatonic scales. You can visit the Dorian, Phrygian, and Aeolian countries, which are minor countries with a minor pentatonic scale. In the same way, you can visit the Ionian, Lydian, and Mixolydian countries with a major pentatonic scale. Okay, those are the most important concepts that we're going to use in this particular lesson. Now let's take a look at which scale should we use over a chord progression. I've got a looper here. This is going to be something that I will most likely keep using in the following lessons. And let's say that we have a chord progression we need to play over. Your band member just got this cool chord progression, and here it goes. It's A minor, F major, and G major, for example, okay? So I'm going to loop that. And you've got a solo over this. You're like, ooh, I don't have to analyze this stuff. What's going on? As for the chords, the first chord, A minor. Okay, so that A minor could be Dorian, Phrygian, or Aeolian, right? Because over a minor chord, you need to use a minor mode, a minor musical alphabet. And we just said, again, I'm generalizing, but most of the time it's going to be true, that over a minor chord, you use a minor scale, and the 3 available minor scales or minor modes or minor musical alphabets are Dorian, Phrygian, Aeolian. You don't know that mode yet. Or maybe you don't know which one it is, but you know that regardless, whether it's Dorian, Phrygian, Aeolian, it's going to have a minor pentatonic scale. That means that, okay, on that A minor chord, I can play an A minor pentatonic scale. Let's give that a try. Yes, that worked, right? Okay, so if that means that we can use a minor pentatonic scale over a minor chord, Does that mean that that minor pentatonic scale is going to work on the rest of the chords? It depends. It depends if the chord progression is in one single key or multiple keys. We're going to consider that it's in one key. If it's in one key, that means that all the chords of the chord progression are extracted from a common single scale, a common single mode, a common single musical alphabet. And we know that that musical alphabet, whatever it is, has an A minor pentatonic scale within. So we know that. If the chord progression is not in the same key, we're going to cover that in a future lesson, but your ear is going to tell you, depending on what's going on. It's going to sound a little different, and we'll get to that in a few minutes just to show you. But here, that chord progression that I played, I'm going to replay it for you. Right here, we had an A minor, F major, G, and back to A minor. And that loops over and over. It sounds harmonious. It works. There's nothing weird there. So that minor pentatonic is going to work throughout. So I'm just playing that minor pentatonic scale, which is most likely what you guys do already. You find a minor pentatonic scale and you play with it. That's not enough. I mean, it can be enough. It's done over and over. A lot of professional musicians do that. But at some point, they kind of sound stale and you get back to this. Right? And you sound bluesy, which is cool. Blues is great, but you want to sound different. Maybe. If not, you can stop your lesson right here and you're good to go. Just take the first chord, associate with that a minor pentatonic scale or a major pentatonic scale, you're good to go. But I'm assuming you want a little more, and you know that there are two notes that are missing to your minor pentatonic scale to have the full 7-letter musical alphabet. What are these notes? So if we look at the formula of the minor pentatonic scale, we have a root, a minor third, a perfect fourth, a perfect fifth, and a minor seventh. We're missing a second, and we're missing a sixth. And we know that the scale we're using is either A Dorian, A Phrygian, or A Aeolian. We don't know which one. If you know the formulas of these modes, that's gonna help you a little bit, but you don't need to. All you need to do is to figure out which are the missing intervals. So you're on a quest now over this track when you're playing to find what kind of second is used and what kind of sixth is used. So we have a second in multiple areas of the fretboard, but the simple way to do that, I would take it in that first box of the minor pentatonic scale. Between these two notes, between the root and the minor third, you either have a major second or a minor second. A minor interval is always smaller than a major interval, so a minor second is going to be 1 fret higher than your root. A major second is going to be 2 frets higher than the root. So you kind of have to search. Now, obviously, you can't just play one, hope for the best. Well, you can, but you might hit the wrong one. Most of the time, it's going to be a major second because Dorian and Aeolian have a major second. Only the Phrygian has a minor. But just in case, we need to figure out which one it is. So for that, we're going to use chromatic things. A chromatic passage between this note and this note is going to work, right? But as you're doing that, you're paying attention, you're focusing on one of these seconds. Like this one, and you remember that. So that you have that in mind. It's fast. And you sing that note in your head through the backing track. Ooh, it doesn't work very well. What about the major second? It works better than ma. So that's a major second. right? If it was a minor second, it's going to be a major second. So now you only have one missing note. You've got the minor pentatonic scale. We know that for a fact. And we figure out the major second. That's also a major second. What happened there? I played a sixth. I went ahead of myself, but the sixth can be major or minor. Same deal. We have a sixth between the perfect fifth and the minor seventh. Just like we did on the first string, where we had the second to place, whether it was minor second or major second. The sixth can be minor, right here, or major. Same deal. You can use the chromatic passage thing. That's the major sixth, or the minor sixth. The minor sixth sounds better. So this scale would be a minor pentatonic scale. And you can embellish it with a major second and a minor sixth. And that combination of minor pentatonic plus minor sixth and major second is the Aeolian mode. That's the key of your chord progression. And all that, notice, was done with very little theory knowledge. It was all in your ear, trying to figure out the missing pieces. We used the theory to realize that within a minor mode, we'll have a minor pentatonic scale. Within a major mode, we'll have a major pentatonic scale, and go from there. Let's take another example really quick. Maybe we'll try something like a D major, E minor, G, and back to D. Okay, I'm not sure what key it is, but my first chord is D major. D major, D major pentatonic. It works, no problem. So major pentatonic is made of a root, a major second, major third, perfect fifth, and major sixth. We're missing the fourth and the seventh, which can be either perfect fourth or augmented fourth, minor seventh or major seventh. And we're just going to kind of fish around. I'm going to try to find that fourth, which is between the major third and the perfect fifth. So I'll do a chromatic passage. And as I was doing that, I kind of isolated in my mind both fourths, and I found that it was a perfect fourth. Major seventh. So a major pentatonic scale with a perfect fourth and a major seventh is the Ionian mode. Once I know that, I can just improvise freely, knowing my key, and I just use my ear. I hope you liked today's masterclass. If you have any questions, now's the time to leave them, because on Wednesdays I have my weekly Q&As. And if you have questions that are relevant to this particular episode, leave them below. I might take them and answer them on Wednesday's video. If not, it can be anything really. And also, if you got really lost in the process, it probably means that your knowledge of intervals is not yet perfect and maybe you need a little bit of extra help, so sign up to my free Music Theory DNA class. It's completely free. It starts every Monday, so sign up right now. You will download the free Music Theory DNA worksheet, which is something that came up, a visual representation of the intervals. I think it's very useful. And do that. You will download it right away. And on Monday, you'll get the first video of a 3-part video training. And at the end of that, I will tell you about my full Guitar Infusion course, which is a longer course, much longer course, more in depth, a real curriculum, because that's been asked for a long time. And I spent about 3 years working on that curriculum. It's ready to go. You'll get an invite to join, but at least sign up to the free Music Theory DNA worksheet. It's, I think it's very useful. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Watch more on my channel. I got way too many videos. I'll see you next time. Until then, practice well.